Hello. So good evening. Am I audible to all of you? Kelvin, Pradesh and Marwan. Is my voice reaching you? Okay. Pradesh and Marwan. I think I'm seeing you for the first time in my class. Are you new students? Pradesh, Marwan. Can you hear me? Nazad, good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening. Okay. Alright. So, in the last few classes, we have been discussing about the pricing of the different factors of production. Okay. How the different factors of production are priced. So, today we are going to discuss about the rent, because in the last class we discussed about wages, and today we will be discussing about the rent. So, can you just tell me which factor of production is associated with rent? For which factor of production do we use the term rent? Like wages are paid to laborers, rent is paid for? Kelvin? Land. Yeah, it's land. So basically we are going to study about the cost of land to a manufacturer. Okay. So rent is a much used word, so everyone is familiar with it, but every time it is used it has a different meaning. So it may mean what a tenant periodically pays to his landlord, like the monthly rent which we pay. That is the common and the most simplest meaning of rent. It may also refer to the payment made for the hire of a sewing machine or a radio set or a piece of furniture, like when we hire another's property, another's belonging, then we pay the land, we pay the rent for the same, isn't it? Similarly, when we hire a piece of land, then also we pay the rent. We hire a building for setting up our office, we are paying the rent. So now this rent has been further subdivided into contract rent and economic rent. So what is contract rent? It means, in ordinary speech, rent refers to the total amount of money paid as a hiring charge for the use of land. So it's a contract rent. Okay, it's pre-decided. How much rent are we going to pay every month? The terms and conditions are all agreed upon. What will be the date of payment, mode of payment, okay, everything. Then what a cultivator is actually paying to the landlord is the contract rent. So that means the simple one. Now economic rent. Economic rent means the payment for the use of land as well as the interest on capital invested therein. Okay. So it includes not only the payment of the land that we are using, but also the interest that has been invested. So now let's see with the help of an example. Now it is the classical economist has defined the economic rent as that part of the total payment which is made for the use of land only as distinguished from the payment made for the capital invested therein. Okay, like suppose a tenant is paying rupees 200 to the landlord as the rent. Okay, so this is a contract rent. This is a periodic payment that he is making. Now, if out of this 50 represents the interest on capital invested, then we will say that rupees 150 is the economic rent and rupees 200 is the contract rent. Okay, that is the difference. So normally the interest which we are, the rent which we pay, it includes the economic rent as well as the contract rent. Okay. So now this was the traditional concept. As per the modern economists, the economic rent not only means that what we pay for the land, but also for any factor of production. Like these days, since the industries are very technology intensive. Lots of technology is put in. So it's not always possible to buy a machine. So the firms hire the machine. So they are paying rent on that hired machine. So that is also rent, economic rent. Okay. So we don't only talk about land and other free gifts of nature, but we also include the other things, and we assume that these are all inelastic in supply. Their supply cannot be varied over a period of time. Okay. So this is about the rent, simple concept of rent. Alright. So if we have to define, we can say that economic rent is the surplus which remains to the cultivator after he has paid all the expenses of production and has met all his liabilities. Okay. So what is left over after doing all that is the rent in economics. If we talk about economics, and normally the term rent is the fixed payment which is made periodically for the use of a particular property, particular thing. Alright, is it clear? The concept of rent is clear? Kelvin, Pradesh, Marwan, Nazad, is that clear? Only one response. Kelvin, Marwan and Nazad, am I audible to you? Can you hear me? Hello, can you all hear me? Kelvin, am I audible to you? Marwan and Nazad, what happened? You are not answering. Okay, Prabha is saying yes. So I am audible to Prabha. Alright. So let's just go to the next part. So this was the concept of rent. Okay, Prabha, right now we have discussed about rent. So rent is the periodic payment that we make for the use of a particular thing. Okay, so that particular thing can be a piece of land, it can be a building, or it can be a machinery. Now there are two types of rent. One is the contract rent and the other is the economic rent. So what is contract rent? That means the rent that we pay on an periodic basis, like 200 rupees a month. So that is the contract rent. The periodic rent is, the economic rent means the rent that we pay like exclusive of the cost of the capital that we are using in the business. Like suppose out of this 200, 50 rupees is the interest which we are paying on the bank's capital, the money which we have taken as loan from the bank and invested in the business as capital. So we will exclude that 50. So we will say 150 is the economic rent, and that 50 will go to make up the cost of the capital, that is the interest. So that is a separate factor of production. Alright? Now we come to the, okay. Now there is one more thing, that is quasi rent. Okay. Now what is the meaning of quasi? The word quasi means almost similar. Okay. So quasi rent means a payment that is almost similar to rent. So similar, like quasi rent may also arise due to a temporary scarcity of a particular kind of skill, which can be increased only if enough time is given. So what is Now what we will do is, we'll discuss this in very short, like now this is about this, we are talking from the Ricardian theory of rent. You know, the Ricardian theory of rent is a separate concept of rent, which we will be discussing in a short while from now. So from the Ricardian theory of rent, a person might conclude that rent is a kind by itself and does not resemble any other payment, but this is not so. The peculiarity of the land, after all, is that all its stock is fixed forever. So rent arises from this peculiarity. So that is why Benham defines rent as a surplus accruing to a specific factor, the supply of which is fixed. Okay, it's like the nature of the land is that it is fixed by nature. It cannot be varied. So on account of this thing only, we have to pay the rent on the land to its owner. So, and this is covered in the Ricardian theory of rent. So now on no other factor is permanently fixed like land, but whenever the supply of any other factor is fixed, even temporarily, its return resembles rent and is called quasi-rent. Okay, so like sometimes due to certain reasons, suppose the supply of other factors also becomes fixed, and then we are paying to them. So if we are paying to them at that point of time, so what we are paying to them will be treated as the quasi-rent. Okay, like suppose the supply of capital is fixed. Now we cannot increase the capital in the in our business. We cannot plead the bank to give us more capital. We cannot do that. So we have to go with the existing capital only. So for this existing capital, the interest which we are paying on that for that particular period of time when it is fixed will be called as the quasi-rent. It will be interest only, but it will be quasi, almost like that nature, false. Now let's see the example which is there. Now for example, during the last war, merchant shipping became scarce. The new ships could not replace the lost ones quickly as ships take long to build. So as a result, the existing vessels began to charge high freights and earn exceptional profits. So these profits were temporary because had the need lasted long enough, new ships would have been constructed and the profits would have reduced. So such abnormal earnings during the period the supply of machines or ships is fixed are termed by Marshall as the quasi-rent. Okay. This is something which arises under abnormal circumstances. Abnormal circumstances in economics means when the supply for a particular thing becomes fixed. It cannot be varied and changed. So in that case, whatever is extra we are paying is termed as the quasi-rent. And it's a temporary phenomenon. Okay, it cannot be long lasting. All right, clear? This is explained with the help of a diagram over here. Okay, it says that we must understand that the quasi-rent stands for the whole of the earnings or income rather than additional income. So this income, some agents of production yield when demand for them has suddenly increased, while their supply cannot be increased readily in response to that increase in demand. So quasi-rent is a short period concept. Like suppose during a cricket World Cup, suppose a cricket World Cup is going on and the people are least expecting a weaker team. Suppose let us assume a weaker team as Bangladesh. This time only Bangladesh, they entered into semi-finals. That wasn't expected. Sorry, quarterfinals. That was something not expected. So suppose they are there. Now what will happen? Their fans would like to buy their t-shirts, the t-shirts supporting their country or the flags of their country. So in this case, the demand for both of these things will go up, their t-shirts as well as their flags. Now their demand may not be met in that short term period. So in this case, whoever is manufacturing is going to charge extra money. So that will be called a example of quasi rent. Okay. This is explained with the help of a diagram, and there is explanation given to the graph. Yes, Prabha. So we can say it is something like abnormal profit only. During Christmas and all, the prices for the rent for the hotels like goes up. Stay in the hotel. So now first let us see the explanation. So hence quasi-rent is a short period concept. Now in this diagram there is quasi-rent shown. Like SS is the vertical straight line. SS stands for the supply of the machines. Now it cuts the demand curve at DD at E. Okay, demand curve is DD. So at the price OP, OS machines are supplied. So if in the short run the demand increases to D dash, the price will go to OP up, but the supply of machines remains at OS. Let us see. This is OS, the number of machines. This SS is the supply curve. This DD is the demand curve. Now suppose the demand curve, the demand for machines has gone up. It has gone to this level, D dash. So now since the supply cannot be changed in this period, so from E the supply the price will go from P to P dash. Because we cannot increase the supply in the short run in this period, supply of machines. Now in the long run or over a period of time, suppose the supply increases. Now the number of machines increases from OS to OM. Okay, so now this will make the price come back to normal, that is E dash, E double dash. So this difference, this rectangular portion is the portion of quasi rent. Okay, this is quasi rent, P dash, E and P, this portion. Now what is the concept of rent, quasi rent and interest? So rent, we know the payment that is made for the use of land. Quasi rent is yielded by machinery and capital equipment. Okay, means it is by the sunk capital. Sunk capital means the capital that has already been invested into the business. So they are all fundamentally similar in that they are all scarce in relation to demand for them. They all are scarce in nature. They all yield a differential surplus arising from limitation of their supply. Only the duration of the limitation of supply varies. Means they can make profits only in the short run, not in the long run. Now suppose if the land is permanently limited. Yes, Prabha, so like supernormal profit only. For a firm it is a supernormal profit, and for a customer it is like the quasi rent, the fake rent, okay, that we are paying. So land is permanently limited and its supply is absolutely inelastic. That is why it is put in a separate category. Since its supply is limited permanently, it is a perennial source of surplus income called rent. The supply of machinery, the limited supply of land does not only mean that we cannot buy more land. It also means that the land given by nature is not going to increase over a period of time. Okay. So it is not only in the short, in a very narrow concept, it is in a very broader concept that we are talking. We are talking with respect to the nature's abundance. Supply of machinery is limited for a short period because it takes some time to produce it. So its supply is therefore elastic but not so elastic. So if it is less than perfectly elastic, means for machines we can say they are little bit inelastic. Okay, not fully but little inelastic. They can be increased over a period of time. Now in the long run, more machines can be produced and the surplus will disappear. This is called the quasi-rent. So on the other hand, the supply of new capital which yields interest is perfectly elastic. They cannot therefore yield any surplus. Means capital. The supply of capital is always elastic. We can go to a bank, we can go to a money lender, we can go to broker, anybody. We can get the money. So we see that rent, quasi-rent and interest are practically the same. So they are derived from assets which differ only in the duration for which the supply is limited. So the difference between them is only a matter of degree and not of kind. Means they are it's just about the degree. Means in case of land we can earn a lot of quasi-rent, but in case of machinery and other factors like capital, we can earn very small portion of the quasi-rent. No, Prabha, there is no time frame. Yeah, economic rent is accrued in all situations. We have to pay it. So this is it. Like now, what is next is one minute. I'm having water. Okay, so we are now done with this portion. Like we just needed to know what is quasi-rent, that we know. Okay, it's the temporary earning which we accrue on account of the different factors of production when their supply becomes constant over a period of time. So what are the characteristics of quasi-rent? Can you just tell me the characteristics of quasi-rent? What are they? What do you think could be the characteristics of quasi-rent? It's short term. Okay. What else? It is a short term phenomena. It is temporary. Yes, it is a precise rent. Okay. That is just the main. Those are just the main characteristics. Okay. Now we come to, no, we will come to this later. Now we'll be discussing about the Ricardian theory of rent. Okay. David Ricardo was a famous economist. Have you heard about him? One minute. Okay. Yes. So let's just continue. So the classical theory of rent is associated with the name of David Ricardo. So we don't need to do that. So he begins with a group of new settlers in a new country. So let us suppose ourselves to be the settlers in a hitherto unknown island, which we shall call Jawahar Island after a beloved leader. Okay. So as we study the natural resources of Jawahar Island, we find the land to be of 4 grades. For convenience, we call them A, B, C and D in order of their fertility. We shall settle down in Tarapur in A part of the island. You can see this is Tarapur, Azad Nagar and C and D. So over here the production is 35 quintals per plot. It's 30 quintals per plot, 25 quintals per plot and 28 quintals per plot at C. So D and C are out of question because there the production is really low. So A and B are more into discussion. Okay. So people have settled in plot A because it is the most fertile. Yeah, one important characteristics of rent or quasi-rent is that it is dependent on the fertility of the land, because a land is demanded just because of its fertility. So it varies from land to land because of the nature of the fertility. So it is the most fertile land and gives us the largest produce per acre. So enough land is available of this quality to satisfy all our needs at the moment. Therefore it is free good and will not command any price. That is rent. But as time passes, the mouths to be fed increases in number. So this may be due to more immigrants who have heard of our good luck or due to an increase in population. So over a period of time, this piece of land may just not be able to satisfy the needs of all the people who are there, because the population might just increase over a period of time. Now, in this type of theory and discussion, there are 2 conditions which we discuss. One is the extensive cultivation and one is the intensive cultivation. So extensive cultivation means when extensively the land is cultivated. Okay, so let's see. A time comes when all of the land of the best quality has been taken up, but some demand still remains unsatisfied. We have then to resort to B quality land. It is inferior to A and yields only 30 quintals of wheat per plot as compared with 35 quintals of A. So now we are taking over A because A is now fully exhausted, fully occupied. So we now have to go to B. Naturally, plots in A now acquire a greater value as compared with B. So a tenant will be prepared to pay up to 5 quintals of wheat in order to get a plot in A zone or take B quality land free of charge. So this is the comparison. He is ready to pay 5 quintals of wheat. We are talking with respect to, not with respect to money, but with respect to the crops only. So we can say that he is ready to give 5 quintals of wheat if he can get a plot in the A zone. And he just doesn't want to take B, and if he has to take land B, he'll take it free of charge. So this difference paid to the owner if the cultivator is a tenant or kept to himself if he is the owner is the economic rent. Okay? The difference that he is paying for the two pieces of land is the economic rent, is the real meaning of economic rent. So now in the first case, when the cultivator is a tenant, he is not the owner of the land, he is just a tenant and rent is going in the pocket of the landlord. So it is a contractual rent, yes, it is as per the contract. And in the latter, that is when he is the owner, it is known as the implicit rent. Implicit means not expressed. So this type of rent is not expressed, it is, he is earning it and he is keeping it with himself. There is no change of hands. Okay. Now B plots do not pay any rent. To go a step further, we see that after all land of B quality has been taken up, we begin cultivating at C plots. Now even B's quality land comes to have differential surplus over C. Now the demand for B land will be now more than C land, because C is not as productive as B. After it was B only which was productive. Now it is C. So rent of A increases still further. Although A is not into production now, it is already exhausted, but still the rent of A is going to continuously increase. Now when the demand increases still more, we are pushed to the use of the worst land, which is D, quality yielding 25 quintals per cloth. So D quality land is now no rent land or marginal land, while A, B, C are all rental lands. So this growing demand shows itself in rising prices. Yes, more is the fertility of the land, more will be its price. So there is high enough to cover the expenses of cultivation on the lowest grade of land, that is D quality. Like, it's not that the prices will, the rent will just increase. The rent will increase to this extent that suppose if you are investing in D piece of land and you are using 10,000 rupees for that, so that 10,000 will be equal to the increase in the rent of A, B and C, especially A. Okay, so they will eat up the whole portion of that. Now let us suppose that 1 unit of productive effort is equal to rupees 3,500. Then only A quality land where a plot produces 35 quintals is under the plough. The price of wheat will be 100 per quintal. Okay, 35 quintals we are manufacturing, and for 1 quintal it is fixed at 3,500. Now, when owing to increased demand, the price of wheat rises to 110, then only then will B quality land be cultivated, which produces 30 quintals of wheat. So the cost will be 30 into 100, that is 3,000. And when that happens, A land will have a surplus of 5 quintals, that is 5 into 110, that is 550 per plot. Okay, 110 for the rent of land A, not rent of land B, not A. Because now the price of wheat has risen to 110 because of the scarcity of good land. So now the A is having a surplus of 550. 5 extra quintals it's manufacturing. It is manufacturing 35 and B is giving 30. So that 5 into the present price, that is 110, it's 550. So this becomes the rent. This 550 is that extra is the rent. The difference, in other words, between the return from a plot of land above the margin and the marginal plot is called rent or economic rent. Okay? Because of its nature, the piece of land is giving extra, so that extra is called as the marginal. Do you understand? Any doubts? One minute. Okay. Now this was about the extensive condition. Extensive means when lot of cultivation was done. Now intensive cultivation. Now the settlers in the Jawahar Island realized that there is another way too of increasing the produce. Why not apply more labor and capital to superior lands and resort to intensive cultivation? This is done, but it is seen that the law of diminishing returns sets in. Okay. Now consider A, B, C and D are the different doses of labor and capital instead of different grades of land. So apply to the same grade of land. So the first dose is 35 quintals. Now we will not talk with respect to making the optimum use on a piece of land. We will now look at the terms of the resources which we are using. So on plot A we are using 35 resources. On plot B resources are giving like 30 quintals. We are using 30 resources. Over here 25 and over here 28. Just a second. Have I gone down? Yes. So from the first piece of land we get 35 quintals with that set of labor. In the second one we get 30. So the second unit of labor and capital used on a plot will almost definitely give us less than the first. We suppose it gives us only 30 quintals. So we have the choice of either taking new plots in B land or cultivating A land more intensively. Okay. So like if the first labor is giving us 35 quintals, then obviously the second is going to give us less. So let us assume it gives us 30 quintals. So now we have two choices. Either we keep on putting more and more labor on the same piece of plot, that is A, or we can use the second piece of labor or the second set of labor on another piece of land, that is B. So if we adopt the latter course, the first unit of labor and capital will be yielding a surplus over the second unit. So which unit produces just enough to cover the expenses? Suppose we go for the A method. So in the A one, the first dose will be definitely giving us extra over the first dose. So that the difference between the two is called the surplus, and it is just enough to cover the expenses. So this surplus is the rent now. So as more and more units of labor and capital are applied, the return per unit will go on falling. As per the law of diminishing marginal utility, more and more thing gets in, the productivity or the outcome goes down. The utility continuously goes down. So same thing is happening over here. Now that was about intensive cultivation. Okay. So for extensive cultivation, the rent was the difference between the two prices of the similar product. Like for initially the per quintal price was 100, but it rose to 110 in the second case. So that 110 into 5 extra units, that is 550 was the rent. And in case of intensive cultivation, the difference of production between the two pieces of land or the same piece of land due to different doses of labor. Okay, that is the difference. Now, rent due to differential advantage. What is this? With the passage of time, a new factor emerges. A locality in the A zone marked Tarapur develops into a market and Azad Nagar in B into a railway junction, and produce has to be sent to those two flourishing localities for their final disposal. Now the plots situated in the neighborhoods of Tarapur and Azad Nagar come to have an advantage, means the pieces of C and D, the land pieces C and D. So they have either no transport charges or much smaller charges than in the case of lands in C and D. C and D is not going to be taken into consideration. So transport charges are a part of the cost of production, because production is complete only when the commodity reaches the hands of consumers. The better situated plots which have to bear less transport charges will enjoy a surplus over the distant ones. Yes, more will be the distance, more will be the cost of production. So surplus will be another cause of rent. So however, economic rent is a surplus which arises on account of natural differential advantages, whether of fertility or of situation possessed by the land in question over the marginal land. Okay, like this is the only reason why the price of land is different in one locality and different in another locality. These are just the factors. One most important factor is the fertility of the land. Then other important factor is the its location from the market, its location from the manufacturing place, everything. Okay? Yeah, it's connectivity. Now what is this no rent or marginal rent? The case described above shows that the rent is earned due to certain places being better situated for cultivation or being better situated in regard to markets. But better than what? Of course, better than some other plot of land. So this some other plot of land is the marginal land, because it just covers its expenses and no more. It is not able to generate any surplus. So this is called the no rent land. So all rents are measured from it upwards. Like in this case D, land D is the no rent land or the marginal land. It is manufacturing, it is giving 20 quintals and that is just enough to cover its cost. This land is giving 5 quintals extra. This is giving 10 extra quintals and this is giving 15 extra quintals. So this is the best land, land A. So in case of land D, we won't say that it is we will discard this piece of land, but if I am the if I am the owner of that piece of land, then for me it will be worthwhile to cultivate this land, because it covers the expenses of cultivation and yields no surplus. So if I am the owner, I need not earn anything, but I need not lose anything. So it is good in that scenario, means in the most difficult situation I can go to land D for only this purpose. Okay, so this is it. So what is this scarcity rent? Let's see that. So in our new home country, Jawahar Island, we at last come to a situation when all the lands have been brought under the plough and are being cultivated intensively too. But the price rises still further under the pressure of demand. So population has been increasing fast. So our country has become old and no more land is available as we are in an island country. So prices of agricultural produce go up and therefore incomes from land go up. So hence all the land, including the no rent land D, begins to get surplus above the expenses. This surplus, our cost in D quality land, our previous no rent land is scarcity rent. Okay, so now we are in a situation when we have to use even the land D. We cannot avoid it. So in that situation, previously we were not getting any rent from that land. It was just covering the cost. So it was a no rent land. And now we are getting some surplus. So this surplus that we are getting is called the scarcity rent. Okay, it is known as the scarcity rent. Why is it called scarcity rent? That's because it is the situation of scarcity. Like we are in scarcity of land. That is why we are using the not so fertile land for the production. Otherwise, we would have never used it. So it is called scarcity rent because of this reason. Okay. So based on all this, what has David Ricardo concluded? He said that according to him, what is rent? Rent is that portion of the produce of the earth which is paid to the landlord for the original and indestructible power of the soil. It is the power of the soil that is making the land productive or fertile, and because of that extra productivity or extra fertility, the land is becoming a gold. It is giving high prices to its owners, high rents it is fetching. So that is why rent is not because of that, rent is because of the original and indestructible power of the soil. So this was the concept of Ricardian theory of rent. Now there are some criticisms to this. You can just read them from your text. Okay. Now let's see what are those. Let's just complete this only because there's not too much time left. So there's no point in starting a new topic. I mean, I was just thinking about this modern theory of rent, but let's not do it right now. Let's just do that. Ricardian. So let's go to your criticisms. Yes, so the first is, it pointed out that the fertility of land is not original. Now, much of the present productive capacity of the land is the result of human efforts, use of manures. Like Ricardo said that it is the original and indestructible power of the soil that gives the rent. But that power is not original, because the existence of earth has been over a long period of time. It's been thousands and thousands of years. So now the piece of land is no longer natural. It has been used over and over, and because of the human efforts and manures, the productivity has increased. Okay. So situation is something which man cannot change. So obviously it is not possible to move a plot of land to another place, but man can improve the means of transport so much that the distance between two places matters little. Thus he can manage to change the character of a place. So the planned cities and factory towns of today are the product of man's brain. Yes. So although this criticism has a leg to stand upon, it cannot be denied that certain original qualities do matter. So no human efforts will change Rajasthan into Kashmir. Yeah, this is it. Like we can say that because of the human efforts there has been changes, but the changes cannot be very extensive. It cannot be like Rajasthan cannot become Kashmir and Kashmir cannot become Rajasthan. The idea of indestructibility. Okay, the land is not indestructible. One minute. So it is said that area, it is said, is everlasting but not fertility. So continued cultivation exhausts the fertility. Yes, it is very true. It is one of the limitations of agricultural practice that over a period of time, you must have studied in geography this concept, isn't it? Like there is alternate farming done. Like 1 year mango is sown and the other year wheat may be sown on the same piece of land. Like this, something like this is done, alternate farming. This is done to restore the fertility of the piece of land. Okay, because if we will keep on sowing one type of crop over a period of time, the soil may become very infertile. So to retain its fertility, we keep on fluctuating between the crops, and we even give gaps. Like for 1 year, we may just not sow anything. This can also happen. So it's like saying that the fertility of the land is indestructible is a very false concept. It is destructible. It can decrease over a period of time, as it can be increased by manures, but naturally it can be decreased also. Okay. Now, point number 4 is, it is said that rent is not due to differential advantages only. Even if all lands were of uniform quality, rent would still arise. So rent arises from scarcity. Okay, it's not only the differential advantage that one piece of land is very fertile and the other piece of land is not fertile. It is also that the pieces of that rent arises because the piece of land is scarce. If everybody would have owned a piece of land, if there was so much of abundance, then there wouldn't have been any rent, anything as rent, isn't it? One minute. Yes. Then the concept of marginal land is said to be imaginary, theoretical, and not realistic. Yes, there cannot be a piece. Prabha, is that fine now? Hello? Prabha, it's clear? Okay. So, this is not, we cannot say that there can be a marginal land, because no land, however waste it is, it cannot be a piece of land without any productivity, and it will be put to some or the other use. Even if a house is built on that, it will be some use. Okay? And it is also argued that no special theory of rent is necessary. Demand and supply theory will explain all values, and they can explain rent also. Then modern economists think that it is only from the point of view of economy as a whole that the land has perfectly inelastic supply and earns a surplus or rent. This surplus is not included in cost and hence does not enter into price. But from the point of view of an individual farmer or industry, a payment has to be made to prevent the land from being transferred to some other use. Whatever the farmer is paying as the rent, he is making it as he is treating it as a cost. It is going into his cost of production. Okay. Now let us discuss one thing, that is transfer earnings. Okay. What is the meaning of transfer earnings? You know? Anyone? What are transfer earnings? 1 minute. Okay. Yes. So transfer earnings is like suppose we are using a piece of land is there and we are using it for the cultivation of wheat and we are getting 150 as the rent. Okay. Now same piece of land is used for the cultivation of potato and now we may get 200 as the rent. So this difference between this 100 and 200, that is of rupees 100, is the transfer earnings. Means when we put the same piece of land for another use, what we get is the transfer earnings. It is something like opportunity cost also. Okay? But it is in terms of earnings. I think there is, in this sheet only, there is, in detail I have discussed about. No, it's not here. Maybe in here. Where is this transfer earning? Yeah, over here it is. The transfer earnings means the amount of money which any particular unit could earn in its next best alternative use. Suppose a piece of land under cotton is yielding 150 and its next best use is wheat which fetches 100. So transfer earnings are rupees 100 and therefore in its present use it is giving a surplus of 50. Alright. Presently we are using it for cotton, it's giving 150 and the next best is wheat. So the difference between the two, that is 50, is the surplus and transfer earnings is 100. When we will transfer a piece of land for some other use, what are we going to get? Okay? Is that clear? Everybody? Hello? Am I audible? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. Alright. So I think we can now wind up because we are done with the Ricardian theory. So thanks for your time everybody. Good night, take care, have a sound sleep and have a great week ahead. Enjoy your work because work is worship. Okay everybody, good night, bye.